The Russian push toward Pokrovsk has suddenly slammed into a wall. And not just any wall, it's Ukraine hitting back with force, torching Russian supply hubs and flipping the momentum on its head. What looked like a sure path for the Kremlin has now turned into a messy puzzle with more missing pieces than solutions. For Moscow, this is a huge blow. Pokrovsk has been on its radar for months, practically an obsession since the summer of 2024. The city isn't just another spot on the map. It's a prize. Ukraine knows it, Russia knows it, and that's why the fighting here has been so intense. The reason Pokrovsk matters so much is simple: location. Think of it like a crossroads where all the important roads meet. From here, highways and rail lines stretch out like arteries, carrying supplies, troops, and reinforcements across the Donetsk region and into Ukraine's heartland. One major route even connects Pokrovsk directly to Dnipro, a huge city that's basically a lifeline for Ukraine's war effort. Whoever holds Pokrovsk doesn't just control a city, they control the flow of resources. That's been Ukraine's biggest advantage. With steady, if hard-fought access to supply routes, Ukrainian defenders can rotate fresh troops in, keep ammunition flowing, and avoid being cut off. For Russia, this makes the city more than just a target. It's almost a necessity, and so far, no matter what the Kremlin has thrown at it, Pokrovsk hasn't fallen. And Russia really has thrown everything: waves of soldiers, armored vehicles, relentless artillery, swarms of drones, you name it. At one point, they even tried sneaking troops in disguised as locals, hoping to sabotage things from the inside. But every time, Ukraine found a way to shut it down, often with its own growing arsenal of drones and precision defenses. The results speak for themselves. Ukraine's top general, Oleksandr Syrsky, recently went public with numbers that flip the Russian narrative on its head. Instead of steadily gaining ground, Russia is actually losing more territory around Pokrovsk than it's winning. In August alone, while Russian units grabbed a handful of square kilometers here and there, Ukraine clawed back far more. In some directions, Russia gained 13 square kilometers, but lost over 25. Around Pokrovsk itself, they picked up just 5, while Ukraine reclaimed 26. And September hasn't gotten any easier for Moscow. Even though Ukrainian troops face hundreds of assaults each week, they aren't just digging trenches and waiting. They're striking back. Recently, Ukrainian forces carried out pinpoint attacks on Russian ammo stockpiles, both near the front lines and deeper inside occupied Donetsk. Ammo is the lifeblood of any army. Without it, artillery batteries fall silent, infantry runs dry, and armored advances stall. Even Russia, with its heavy reliance on drones and missiles, can't fight without mountains of shells and rockets. That's why it hides away massive stores and depots, ready to truck them forward when needed. But now, with Ukraine targeting those very depots, every Russian supply run is turning into a gamble. That's where things start to get even more interesting. By knocking out Russia's ammo depots, Ukraine isn't just creating short-term headaches. It's attacking the backbone of Moscow's entire war machine. Imagine trying to run a marathon with no water stops along the way. That's what Russian commanders are now facing. Frontline units that risk being starved of the shells, rockets, and bullets they need just to keep firing. And the timing couldn't be worse for Russia. Its forces are already stretched thin across multiple battle zones, with Pokrovsk only one of several areas where they're trying to push forward. Supply chains were fragile even before Ukraine began targeting them. Now, each destroyed depot means Russian soldiers may have to wait longer for resupply, making them more vulnerable to Ukrainian counterattacks. Ukraine, on the other hand, is turning defense into opportunity. Every successful strike on an ammo warehouse doesn't just slow the Russian advance. It buys Ukrainian troops precious breathing room to regroup, fortify, and prepare for their own offensives. It also sends a message. Even deep inside occupied territory, Russia can't count on safety anymore. That psychological impact is huge. Russian soldiers on the ground are starting to realize that the explosions rocking their rear areas aren't just random accidents, they're calculated hits. When you can't trust the security of your own stockpiles, morale takes a nosedive. Commanders who once felt confident about overwhelming Ukrainian defenses now have to ask themselves whether they'll have the firepower to actually do it. Meanwhile, Ukraine is getting more efficient at using its growing arsenal of Western-supplied systems. Precision-guided rockets, drones capable of flying long distances, and upgraded artillery are all part of the mix. These tools allow Kyiv's forces to hit farther, faster, and with more accuracy than before, making each strike more devastating. The bigger picture? If Ukraine keeps up this pressure, Russia could find itself burning through its reserves faster than it can replace them. That's not just a battlefield issue, it's an economic and political one too. Moscow has been pumping billions into producing weapons and ammunition, but factories can't always keep up with the pace of modern warfare. Add sabotage, sanctions, and constant Ukrainian strikes into the mix, and suddenly even Russia's famously massive stockpiles start to look less endless. With Ukraine hammering so many of these depots, Russian soldiers fighting around Pokrovsk are starting to feel the pinch. Ammunition isn't endless, and when supply lines are disrupted, cracks begin to show on the front. This shortage creates windows of opportunity, moments Ukraine can exploit to push the enemy back, reclaim land, or even break through defensive lines that once seemed solid. But before we get into what Ukraine might do next, let's zoom in on the big strikes that set this chain reaction in motion. One of the most dramatic attacks unfolded in Donetsk city, deep inside Russian-occupied territory. Out of nowhere, long-range Ukrainian drones flew in, locked onto their targets, and tore into ammunition storage sites. Russian soldiers nearby caught some of it on camera. The footage showed smoke streaks in the sky, proof that air defenses were scrambling to intercept, but the ground told a different story. Enormous clouds of black smoke billowed up from a facility that clearly hadn't been spared. Then came the shock wave. One massive blast hit with so much force that it knocked a soldier flat on the ground, even though he was miles away from the impact zone. And the destruction didn't stop there. In the hours after the initial explosions, secondary blasts kept rocking the city, a telltale sign that fire had spread inside the depots, igniting stockpiles of shells and rockets. By the looks of it, hundreds of tons of ammunition went up in flames. The scale of the smoke columns, visible from multiple parts of Donetsk city, suggests at least 2 major ammo facilities were destroyed that day. That's not just luck on Ukraine's part. It's a testament to sharp intelligence work and meticulous planning. Kyiv's forces are zeroing in on the most vital gears in Russia's war machine, then striking when the payoff will be greatest. Another wave of destruction came closer to the front, in the city of Seladov, roughly 10 miles southeast of Pokrovsk. This location has been a major logistics hub for Russian forces since they captured it, serving as a storage site and staging ground. But that made it a prime target. Video from the aftermath shows an inferno swallowing a warehouse, flames roaring high with explosions popping off in the background. From the sound of it, the ammo inside was cooking off one piece at a time, turning the whole site into a chain reaction fireworks show of destruction. One Russian soldier filmed in the chaos summed it up with just a few words, muttering that hell has broken loose. For him and his comrades, that wasn't an exaggeration. Seladov's importance as a logistics hub makes its loss sting even more for the Kremlin. And given its close proximity to the front lines, it's an easy reach for Ukraine's drones, artillery, or even missiles. That makes any future Russian decision to stockpile there a gamble they may not want to take again. Russian forces likely expected that by now, they'd be pushing deeper into Ukrainian territory, securing places like Seladov as the front line drifted further west. Instead, their offensive has crawled forward at a snail's pace, and that slow grind has left them vulnerable to the very problems they thought they'd avoided. Take Seladov as an example. Moscow didn't just use the city as a temporary storage site, it went all in, building a major base and an ammo depot right in the middle of town. The idea seemed clever on paper. Tuck the depot among tall buildings to shield it from Ukrainian drones and missile strikes. But the plan fell apart the moment Ukraine spotted the setup. Using precision targeting, Kyiv's forces struck the facility head-on, and what was meant to be a fortress of supplies was reduced to smoking rubble. And Seladov isn't an isolated case. It's just the latest in a long string of Ukrainian strikes designed to chip away at Russia's war machine. Back in early July, for instance, another Russian ammo dump in Kharkiv deeper inside occupied Donetsk, went up in flames after a Ukrainian hit. Explosions rocked the area, captured on video, and quickly spread online. Just days later, a separate attack sparked fires and detonations in another occupied town. And around the same time, Ukraine's border guard drone unit took out yet another storage site. One by one, depot by depot, Ukraine is carving holes in Russia's logistics network. And many of these blows are landing in the same general area. The Donetsk-Yasinuvata-Horlivka rail triangle, plus the Avdiivka-Ocherityne road corridor. Together, those routes form the backbone of Russia's push toward Pokrovsk. They're the pipelines feeding weapons, ammo, and reinforcements into the offensive. With each strike, Ukraine is choking off those lifelines. This leaves Russia scrambling. Instead of central hubs where stockpiles can be protected and easily moved, Moscow now has to scatter supplies in smaller caches, hide them, and rely on long convoys to ferry them forward. But convoys are soft targets. Ukrainian drones, artillery, and reconnaissance units thrive on catching them in the open. Every truck taken out along those rough, exposed roads is another blow to Russia's ability to sustain its offensive. Seladov's destruction makes the problem even worse. That city had been the main ammunition hub south of Pokrovsk, a vital staging area. With it gone, Russia is forced to store ammunition farther away, dragging supplies over longer distances and risking more ambushes along the way. The logistics chain stretches thinner, slower, and weaker with every added mile. And the frontline troops are already feeling the pinch. Without guaranteed resupply, commanders have to ration shells and missiles. Instead of the usual Russian approach, relentless artillery fire, waves of assaults, and overwhelming brute force, they're forced into a more cautious, piecemeal style of fighting. Attacks become fewer, bombardments lighter, and soldiers are told to pick their battles instead of storming ahead non-stop. This shift flips the script. Ukraine, which for months has had to brace against constant pressure, suddenly gets a breather. With fewer barrages raining down, its troops can regroup, strengthen defenses, and, most importantly, plan counterstrikes. If Russian units can't sustain heavy firefights, they risk being pushed back, abandoning positions, and losing territory they bled to capture. And even small gains for Ukraine matter here. Every town or village retaken near Pokrovsk pushes Russia farther from its goal and chips away at the incremental progress it has made. Progress that came slowly, one sliver of land at a time.
If you've made it this far into the video, it means you're enjoying what we do here at Euro Bulletin. Take a second to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more updates and insights from Europe and its partners. Let's dive in more into the subject.
Ukraine now finds itself in a position it could only have dreamed of a few months ago. The ability to erase Russia's incremental gains and shove its forces right back to where they started. Every depot destroyed and every convoy ambushed doesn't just weaken Russia's grip near Pokrovsk. It helps build a protective buffer zone that makes the city tougher to capture than ever before. And it's not just about holding ground. With gaps opening in Russia's air defenses and radar coverage, Ukrainian drones are freer to slip deeper behind enemy lines. Once there, they can scout out fresh targets, beam intelligence back to frontline brigades, and launch pinpoint strikes on supply trucks, repair yards, command centers, and more hidden ammunition stashes. Each hit adds another layer of chaos to Russia's already strained logistics. The scale of destruction is staggering. Analysts estimate that just in Donetsk, recent Ukrainian strikes wiped out several hundred tons of artillery shells. Add in all the other attacks across the front, and Russia is staring at a crisis of supply with no easy fix. It's already been bled dry of manpower, losing hundreds of thousands of soldiers killed or wounded. Its arsenal has been shredded. Billions of dollars worth of tanks, armored vehicles, missile systems, aircraft, ships, and support vehicles reduced to twisted metal. On top of that, Russia's economy is buckling. Factories that were once the pride of its Soviet legacy are now overstretched, struggling to churn out weapons and ammunition fast enough to replace battlefield losses. Even with grand promises about ramped-up production, the Kremlin faces a simple math problem. It can't replace equipment as quickly as Ukraine can blow it up. For the soldiers stuck on the front lines, the consequences are brutal. Low supplies mean fewer shells to fire, fewer drones to launch, and fewer rockets to defend with. Morale, already at rock bottom in many units, sinks even lower when men realize their commanders can't deliver the basics needed to keep them alive. Some may desert, surrender, or even switch sides rather than face the near certainty of being overrun. It's not an unfamiliar pattern. Earlier in the war, whole groups of Russian soldiers collapsed once Ukraine managed to choke off their supply lines. Cut off from food, water, and ammo, they eventually crumbled. Today, the same scenario is repeating itself in areas like Dobropilya and other positions near Pokrovsk, where Russian units sit stranded, unable to move forward, and with no reinforcements in sight. That paralysis is Ukraine's opening. As Russian commanders fumble, Ukrainian forces exploit their advantage, making steady use of their tactical superiority to put Moscow's troops on the back foot. And the ripple effect spreads far beyond Pokrovsk. Across the entire front line, Ukraine has embraced one strategy above all others: hunt down Russia's most critical assets and eliminate them. It's a method as straightforward as it is effective. Instead of trying to match Russia's shell for shell or tank for tank, Ukraine identifies what the enemy can't afford to lose: ammunition hubs, fuel convoys, radar stations, and takes them out. Every strike makes Russia's job harder, and every weakness exposed helps level a battlefield where the odds were never even to begin with. This approach, striking what matters most, has started to reshape the entire war. Instead of wasting energy in massive head-on battles, Ukraine is forcing Russia to fight with one hand tied behind its back. Every lost depot, every wrecked convoy, every destroyed command post chips away at Moscow's ability to wage the kind of overwhelming brute force campaign it has relied on from day one. And the beauty of this tactic lies in its simplicity. Ukraine doesn't need to match Russia tank for tank or missile for missile. It just has to make sure Russia's firepower never arrives where it's needed. Blow up the shells before they reach the guns, torch the fuel before it fills the tanks, fry the radar before it guides the missiles. Suddenly, Russia's much-advertised strength turns into weakness, and its supposed advantages begin to collapse under their own weight. We're already seeing how this plays out. In places where Russia once fired relentless waves of artillery, barrages are becoming shorter, less frequent, and far less intimidating. Soldiers who were used to storming Ukrainian lines with heavy backup now find themselves waiting, unsure if reinforcements or supplies will ever arrive. That hesitation alone is enough to tilt the balance. When an army loses confidence in its logistics, it loses confidence in its fight. Ukraine, meanwhile, is capitalizing on this uncertainty. Drones are no longer just tools for scouting. They've become central weapons, darting into Russian-held areas to strike convoys, scan hidden depots, or even harass troops resting behind the lines. Each successful mission adds pressure, forcing Russia to stretch its defenses thinner and thinner. The Kremlin can build more tanks and missiles, but it can't be everywhere at once, and Ukraine knows it. What makes this shift so powerful is that it flips the roles. Russia, the bigger and richer side, is supposed to dictate the pace. Instead, it's now reacting, scrambling to cover holes, patch up mistakes,